Yeah, let's talk about congruency and similarity. So, we're dealing with congruent and similar triangles. Remember, for congruency, these are the ways we can prove triangles are congruent. And for similarity, we can use these three methods here. Okay, so they're saying that these two triangles are similar. This is called the similarity statement. Remember, just from this, you know 6 things. You know 3 sets of corresponding sides, and you know 3 sets of corresponding angles. So what are those again? Well, angle P corresponds with angle U, so I know those two got to be the same measure. Angle Q corresponds with angle V, and angle R corresponds with angle W. So these triangles are similar, which means they have the same shape, which means that all corresponding angles are the same. As opposed to congruent triangles, where all sides must also be congruent as well. But we can have triangles, different sizes obviously, that are similar. Basically, the ratio of those corresponding sides is the same. Okay? So with this problem, a lot of people would rush ahead and say something like, well, there is QR right there, so that's got to be proportional to 30. But if you look at our similarity statement, what does QR match up with? Well, VW, right? So you got to be careful there. We know that QR matches up with VW. Those are corresponding sides. Okay, and it says what is the ratio of the areas? Okay, well the ratio of the sides, not the areas, the ratio of the sides would be 24 over 40. Right, so if they said what's the ratio of the sides of these two triangles, you would say 3:5. But they want the ratio of the areas. Remember, areas in square units, so you essentially have to square both of these numbers here. So that comes down to 9 over 25, or we can write it as 9 to 25. Yep, that's about it. Alright, let's look at this next one here. So in a triangle, one side is 6 centimeters shorter than the other side. If a ray is drawn bisecting, splitting in two, the angle formed by those two sides, the ray divides the third side into segments of 5 and 8. Okay. So what I noticed a lot of students were doing, writing a triangle like this, calling this x minus 6, and they were calling this side 5 and 8. And they even knew this too. They knew what a bisector does. It splits an angle into 2 congruent angles. But let's just think about this. If this one is x units long, shouldn't this one be a little shorter? So that's what my diagram's drawn. This side's a little bit shorter, and you can clearly see that this segment now is going to be the shorter than this one here. So if you're trying to decide which one's got to be 5, which one's got to be 8, well, the one that's next to the shorter side is going to get the smaller side length. Okay, and then this, I think this is the angle bisector theorem or something like that. Whatever it is, it basically says if a ray bisects an angle, splits it in 2, then these two triangles are similar. Okay, and not similar, but they're the sides are proportional. So essentially this side is to this side, just as this side is to this side. And you'll notice you can write that a bunch of different ways. So what I did here is just another way of writing it. So I had x over 8 is to x minus 6 over 5. So I actually rewrote it the way they had it up here in the diagram. And you notice it's going to be 8 times quantity x minus 6, same as we got here, and x times 5, same as we got here, so it really doesn't matter. But it's a good way to remember it though. Okay, cross multiply. X times 5 is 5x, 8 times quantity x minus 6, and then we solve. So we now know the value of x is 16, so that's going to be 10 right here. And then they want the perimeter, so we got to add them all up. Alright, let's look at this last one here. In the diagram, determine the value of x. Okay, so the first thing I saw were parallel lines. When I see parallel lines, I know we're going to get some congruent angles. Because if I have two parallel lines cut by a transversal, then alternate interior angles must be congruent. And if I have two parallel lines cut by this other transversal, alternate interior angles must be congruent. That's why those two are the same. And of course these are vertical angles. Now remember, to prove triangles are similar, all I needed was two angles, so I could have stopped there. Prove these by angle, but we know these are vertical angles, so I just threw that in there. Okay, since we got similar triangles, let's start setting up some proportions so we can solve. We need to find x. The only place I see an x is right here. So what I want to do is find like the scale factor. Basically, we need to figure out, well, let's just set up a ratio and then we'll figure it out. Okay. So I said this side right here in red, it's between the green, or the 2 tick mark and the 3 tick mark. So which side in this triangle B here corresponds with that one? Well, that's going to be the one that's also between the 2 tick mark and the 3 tick mark. So that's why I said 6n minus 51 is 2, 3n minus 8. And then we're going to do these two sides right here. The question is, well, which one goes on top and which one goes on the bottom? Now notice I started with this triangle here, triangle A, and I went to triangle B. So now I'm going to start with triangle A and go to triangle B, which is what I did there. Okay. And then we work this out and we get a value of n to be 16. So I went ahead and plugged those in there. 3 times 16 minus 8 is 40, and we went through there. Okay. And now we can figure out what that scale factor is. Okay. So in other words, if I did 40 divided by 45, right, what does that come to? Well, that's just 8 over 9, right? So in other words, for every 8 units this one has 9. Okay? So basically what we did was we said 40 is to 45, just as 3x minus 1 is to 5n plus 10. But I know this one was just 90 after I plugged in a 16 right there. So that's what we had over here. 40 over 45 reduces to 8/9. Cross multiply. Find your value of x equals 27. That is all. Just remember, with these similar triangles, pay attention to your congruency statement if they give it to you. It tells you 6 things. Don't assume just because this one's on the left that it corresponds with the one on the left. Yeah, that's about it. Adios.